Hi, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about my birdhouses and try and field some of the questions I've gotten in the past in the comments. You can go back to the other birdhouse builds that I've made and look at those so you get a better feel from where I'm coming from. I'll add links at the end of the video. The build process I'm going to show you today was very long, so I had to cut it into 3 parts. Hit the subscribe button and the notification button to see every part of this series. You'll be notified once a week.
That birdhouse?
Yep, I'm looking forward to putting it up. I bought it from Melanie. I think it's got a very unique design. I like the fact you can actually see inside with the birds. My plan is to kind of attach it to a tree that we have off our patio. We have a number of birds that are already feeding off our bird feeder. And to have another option where maybe some of those birds might migrate to the birdhouse and actually stay around and visit us for a while longer and know exactly what type of bird is gravitating to a birdhouse would be really neat. So thank you for walking me through how you design this. We really like that unique flavor for a special birdhouse.
This is my latest birdhouse. It has a cedar face and back with etchings and all other kinds of additional items to make it more indicative of the region where I live in the Blue Ridge Mountain area. It also has a spalted maple roof, and it does have a removable bottom to take out whatever the bird leaves the previous year, and you can clean it and then put it out year after year. I go through the process of how I made it. I'm going to try and address all the questions I've had, but if I miss anything, please put your question in the comment. Everybody likes to learn and figure out what to do and what I do to grow in their birdhouse builds. To start with, I make what I call log cookies. In this case, they're halves of a log. You'll see in a minute. But I had to change out the bandsaw, so I bought this very good $150 blade for my bandsaw. And when I hooked it up, it was a tad challenging. But after a little bit, I got it to run right and to run parallel to the table and work properly. So this is a piece of western red cedar that a friend gave me. They had this huge mantle put over their fireplace, and this was a cutoff, so it's a half of the log, so it's pretty good diameter. I'd say closer to 14 or 16 inches in diameter, and this was an extra piece they cut off and decided to give to me. So I positioned the fence standing upright, which it's about 6 or 7 inches high in this position, and I sliced about a ½ inch off of the existing half log so I could book match it, which you just saw me doing. And I'll make several passes against the fence, being very careful to avoid getting my fingers near the very, very sharp blade. Here is another example of what I call log cookies that I cut from another half log of spalted maple. Now, you can see the original edge is irregular and I'm making it square. So all I'll do is I'll cut this on the bandsaw, and then I'll take it over to a flatbed sander and make it dead flat. So when I join these two together, they look perfectly matched. And this is a really highly figured piece of wood, and I just wanted to throw this in to give you an idea of other things. And you probably saw some in the beginning of the video where I did book match and had some very interesting looking shapes and figures. Now I only concern myself with one side because with a birdhouse I'm just using the face. So I'm using these two pieces of book match spalted maple. They came off of one log, same way like a log cookie, same cutting on the bandsaw, and so the book match. And you'll be able to see that in the end. But I'm deciding how I want to position this and how deep I want the roof and different things like that. So I'll make that decision. What these little pieces are right angles, and they're going to hold this roof parts together. And I use this really incredibly good hot glue that I have. And I've talked about that in my past videos and answered a zillion questions on that. I'll try to remember to put a link to this glue at the in the description below. Now you can see how that glue has oozed out over that right angle. I don't have a problem with that. It's hidden. It actually helps adhere the little right angles to the piece even better. So I just leave it there. Now I know with using these little right angle pieces, I'm going to have a perfect, or that's the theory, a perfect right angle for the roof. So when I add other things to embellish it, I know I'm at a right angle right away. And take a look in the background. You can see those two half log cookies of the cedar glued together in a book match form, and they have clamps on them. So I do those previously and set those aside while I'm working on this rooftop. This next part I call the ridgepole, although it doesn't really function the same way architecturally as in the real world. But there is some theory to my building and constructing, and it is similar to architectural builds or home builds, but this is a non-functional ridgepole. But anyway, this is what I'm putting on now, and this stretches almost the entire width of the roof line. So I just wanted to add a little bit more depth, dimension, height. I don't know. It's an embellishment. It's a piece of bamboo that I have carved in half and sanded and also done some etching and wood burning on. So it does have some extra added features. And it's sort of, I don't even know what you'd call this architecturally. If anybody knows, please put it in the comments below. I don't know. I just thought it was cool. So I put it on there. And I'm gluing it up again with the same heavy-duty glue, which I love. This glue, by the way. Glue Stick. glue-stix.com. That's where I bought this glue. They do sell all kinds of glue, and they do sell all kinds of guns. This obviously is an arrow gun. I'll put a link to that in the description below if you want to use that instead. So in the description below, I'll put a bunch of links as to where I get some of the products that I use, some of the tools that I use. And I'm also later on in this video going to go into some details about how I make money, how I actually sell. So what I'm doing now is I'm preparing one of these little embellishments. This happens to be a resin pour. I pour extra resin that I have in cups, and then I end up with these little pieces that I can use in other projects that I'm working on, including this birdhouse. And this particular piece of round resin fit perfectly around that bamboo area. So you'll see how they put that together in just a minute. I do my best to be careful with the direction in which that chisel is aiming so I don't cut my other hand while I'm working with them. And while I'm talking about dangers, this glue gun is about 400 degrees, and I've gotten in this glue on me and it doesn't come off and it leaves a mark. It really burns. So if you're going to use this stuff, please be very, very careful because you'll definitely hurt yourself with it. So this little triangular piece, which is made out of an exotic wood imported from Southeast Asia. I don't remember exactly what the name of it is. Could be koa. I just don't remember. I get a lot of different woods and I just can't remember all of the names of them. But I'm doing some real mild repairs on it with this CA glue. It's a very nice CA glue, and it's got a fine tip point that gets into small areas and small cracks. And this is not going to be in an area that is requiring great support. It's an embellishment, and you'll see me put this to use later on in the video. So what I'm doing now is sizing up and fitting the face and the back to fit the shape, the right angle shape of the roof and the roof line. I take it over to the bandsaw, and after I mark it, I cut off those live edge pieces from the log cookie, and it's a bit brittle, and you can see that little piece got stuck in the bandsaw there. I have to wait to turn it off. Don't want to go anywhere near that blade when it's running. I remove that little piece in there, and then I actually ended up pushing it down through and out the bottom. But I will cut those edges off of there and then take it back and fit it into the roof. So as I discovered here, both peaks are the same squareness or right angleness. So I just marked the second or the back log cookie, book matched log cookie, and took it into the bandsaw and cut that next. Here comes my least favorite part of being a woodworker, and that is sanding. But it seems to be something that is required a great deal. Now, when I cut these into log slices, there was marks left on them, lines left on them, and I had to sand those down. They were left there from the bandsaw. Once I finally adjusted the blade, it didn't do that anymore, but it was too late. I had already cut these. Now, those lines that are radiating out from the side, they're in the sapwood, the light-colored wood. The inside part, the red part, that is called heartwood. But the sapwood, it was more fragile, so it had little hairline cracks, which I sealed with CA glue previously, and just had to sand everything down and make sure it was flat. And I didn't care if it was parallel on both sides. It didn't matter. What mattered was that the surface was flat, and that's what I achieved with the palm sander here. Once I finished doing this, I went to the belt sander, and that's where I did the final sanding of the edges, and I kind of chamfered the edges a little bit and took away a lot of the hairy little fine filament areas and pieces that are that come on the edges of this cedar wood. Keep in mind those cracks that I filled with the CA glue, they're very apparent now, but once I put the finish on, they'll just blend right into the surface. Now it's time to attach the face and the back for the birdhouse. This may sound like backwards construction. Some people start with the body and then do the roof last and then the bottom. But it seems as though this functions pretty good for me. So here I'm gluing the front part on, but it's the inside where you'll never see it, and I'm putting a substantial amount of glue here to keep this all in place nicely and secure. And you can see that I don't bother sanding the inside. It's not seen. There's no need to sand it or plane it or anything like that. So I just leave that the way it was when it was joined. Now, instead of waiting till I'm all finished with this project, I take care of any glue spillouts immediately. Otherwise, I might forget. So I have this X-Acto blade with it's not a pointy tool, although it is, but it's got a flat part to it. And you can see I can pry this glue away pretty easily with that. It's like my favorite go-to X-Acto blade for getting into small areas and also pulling the glue away without digging into the wood itself. You can see how cleanly it comes off. I'll leave a link to where I bought those in the description below. And after finishing with the front, I turn my attention to the back piece, and I try to get these two pieces of red cedar as parallel to each other as possible, because the box sides will be going on next, and it's important that they're the same distance apart. Here I am just touching up and adding a little bit more of a reinforcing glue on the inside. Again, you're not going to see that. So now I'm starting to build the sides of the box, And I do this last, and I do the, let me say, the face and the back first, because the look of this birdhouse is more important to me than the box itself. So you can see I've got a tongue and groove piece of pine there, and I'll cut off the tongue and I'll cut off the groove on both of these sides and size it to fit in between. And there I've put them in place, I've glued them in place, and now I'm ready to attach the bottom. So I don't know if you remember that little piece I was gluing up with the CA glue, those little splits, the exotic piece of wood. Well, here I am returning to that, and I'm just doing a final sanding with that, and I am going to put that into the peak on the back side of this birdhouse. Now is about the time when I start to really see the character of the wood, and I start to see these two eyes and kind of like a face. This is the front part of the birdhouse, but I start to see like the face of an owl, and I'm going to put a hood right there, but the back I won't be putting anything, but there's definitely in my mind the face of an owl, and that's where I'll put the entrance hole. But, you know, each birdhouse has a different character, and because I book matched it, that's where you start to see the owl, and the hole is its mouth. But, you know, each birdhouse is a little different, so I see different things in each one. This is a piece of live edge cypress that I had milled from trees that were cut down on my neighbor's property. I have a video on that milling process if you want to look. It was probably a year ago. It's in my video selection if you want to watch that process. I'll add a link to that video in the description below. So before I finish part one of this birdhouse build, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my marketing techniques. The biggest thing I do, the most successful thing I do, is I find festivals that are appropriate for what I'm selling. Now there's all different kinds of festivals. There's really high-end art festivals, and there's festivals that just, well, they allow people to come in and resell stuff they buy at China. That's not art in my mind. So those aren't the festivals that I go to, but you need to do research. You need to either go there and see what they're selling at these festivals, talk to the people, and find out what the rent is, find out how many days it is, where you're going to have the cost of gas, which is kind of costly right now. Are you going to have to get a hotel room? Are you going to have to buy a meal? So all of that needs to be taken into consideration when you're trying to find festivals that will be suitable for you. I tend to find festivals around where I live, so I don't have to go far. I just don't want to do that. I used to do that. I don't want to do that anymore. So I look for festivals that are close to my home and that are suitable for what I'm selling. These birdhouses, they're art. So I need to be in a festival where the people appreciate art and birds. Those are my buyers. So knowing your buyer is half the battle. I'm going to talk more about how I sell to these people in part 2 of this series. So if you're interested in seeing the remainder of this birdhouse build, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button for notifications, and I'll see you next week. I publish on Saturdays around between 5 and 7 p.m. Don't forget the links in the description below and the links at the end.